Hello and welcome to episode 116 of Fergo and the Freak. I'm that bloke from Rugby League Project, Andrew Ferguson. You can find me on Twitter at AndrewRP. And join me once again as the glorious League Freak, who you can find on Twitter at League Freak. How you going there, mate?
I'm going very well, Andrew Ferguson. How are you?
This is very formal. I love it.
You've got to be formal when you start these podcasts, you know.
Yes, as opposed to what we did in the last one.
Yeah. Another one bites the dust.
That was, I mean, at least we warmed up.
Yeah, that's true.
Today we figure we're going to keep going on this history trend, but instead of going way back to the early days, which is, my domain, we're going to talk about, we're going to look at one season in depth, and it's one that we both went through. And we're going to look at 1994.
Yeah, and I think that there's been a couple of really good seasons since 94, but I think in my lifetime, when you look at the entirety of the 1994 season, I feel like that's the best season that I've ever seen.
Yeah, the one thing that stands out for me from 94 was Brett Mullins.
Yeah, he dominated that year. And man, he scored some of the most memorable tries ever. But there's so many great moments that come out of 94, and they happen at like all levels of the game as well. It's just one of those really magic seasons, and it's ironically a big pivot point in the history of the entire game as well for other reasons.
Yeah, so I suppose we'll start with, this is the last time that the rugby league competition, the main premier competition as it were, was known as the New South Wales Rugby League.
Yep. And the following season, they'd already announced that there were plans to bring in a team from Auckland, another team from Brisbane, and they had, what were the other teams? North Queensland.
Two teams from Brisbane.
Two teams from Brisbane.
Oh, sorry, two teams from Queensland. Yeah, one from Brisbane, one from North Queensland, one from Western Australia, and one from New Zealand.
Perth, which were the Western Reds back then still. So, yeah. And it was weird. Rugby league, for the most part, still had, I don't know, there was this magic about it, and it was in rude health, and it was really confident in itself, and it was just about to make a next step.
Yeah, the game was improving so rapidly, and the crowd figures, the money coming in through sponsorship, all that sort of stuff, it was just going on in leaps and bounds.
Yeah, it was really amazing. So I guess we'll get stuck into the season. Let's do it.
So we'll start with something that didn't even happen really in Australia. Mm-hmm. January 2, Wigan chairman Jack Robertson accuses Auckland Warriors coach John Mooney of breaking up his present and Mooney's former club by signing Wigan and Great Britain test prop Andy Platt. Platt's signing for Auckland followed that of Wigan's former Kiwi test centre Dean Bell.
Now, Andy Platt, I believe he is the one where he had the legendary dog.
Yes, that's the one.
Yeah, and the legend is that how much they said they would spend to get Andy Platt's dog into Auckland so he could keep his dog was astronomical.
Yes, it's crazy. It actually reminds me too that this is probably the last season when the Australian competition and the English competition were reasonably close as far as the club competitions went.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm willing to say that in 1994, at the least where we're at now, at the very start of 1994, if somebody said, what is the best team in the world, it's very easy to say Wigan.
Absolutely.
And I think everybody in Australia at this time, Wigan was, they were the standard. They were almost the Great Britain team. They had a lot of players that were genuinely, if they weren't the best player in the world at their position, they were in the top 2 or 3. And it was probably the last time that we looked to England and there were players that were like, oh my goodness, I hope he probably comes over here. He's an exciting player. So,
we're looking here already at Andy Platt and Dean Bell coming across. Mm. 3 days later, Great Britain coach Malcolm Riley calls for an immediate halt to the drain of players to Sydney, following Platt's decision and the news of John Devereaux linking with the Western Reds.
Mm-hmm.
3 days and 3 players look like the jumping ship already out of England.
Yeah,
It's
and
panic stations already.
yeah, I guess looking back on it, I think there were a lot of problems that saw Australia leap and everyone else leap ahead of Great Britain, but I guess this was just a sign that there was a change coming. And I guess that it also showed that in Australia there was a lot of money. Whereas, like before that, if Wigan wanted someone, they got them. Like it was just that simple. They were the
Sydney clubs
richest
couldn't
team.
compete.
No, they were the richest team in the world, and by the length of the straight. And this was maybe the first sign of that changing.
Yep. January 8, Balmain dumped Mark Geyer from their first grade squad for repeatedly missing training without explanation.
Yeah, and we're actually still planning on having Mark on, and we've talked to him. I've talked to him on the phone a little bit about it, and he's like, yeah, ask me about anything. So we'll ask him about at that time in his career. It'll be interesting to find out about it.
It will. January 10, North stick to their decision not to release winger Darryl Halligan after a meeting between Halligan and club directors. And 8 days later, Halligan failed to attend training, suggesting that the dispute with the club was far from over.
Yeah, we all know where he ended up. So,
yeah,
poor old North Sydney. Yeah.
Where would he? January 20, Rugby League and Rugby Union are on a collision course after news that Rugby's World Cup could be transferred from South Africa to Britain in 95, in direct opposition to Rugby League Centenary World Cup.
I don't remember that.
How would that have gone down?
Yeah, that would have been weird. But you know what? At the time, and it's probably one of the great moments for Rugby Union that didn't happen, because by having their World Cup in World Cup in South Africa, that was the big leap for the Rugby Union World Cup. Like before that, it was like a sports carnival, it was nothing. And that one, South Africa had just come out of the apartheid era, and they had just had their sporting teams being allowed to compete once again in world sports, and that was like a chance for South African people, and mostly for the white population of South Africa, to go to a big event, go to a big world sporting event. And it really vaulted the Rugby Union World Cup into a different level. And the funny thing was, like, the Rugby League World Cup was at a very high level as well back then. And it was probably the last Rugby League World Cup that you could say was at that sort of level. I think that, obviously after that it fell right away. And then
that's the thing, though, is that
since
through the 80s, they abandoned the typical World Cup structure that we know of, where everyone turns up at one place for 3 or 4 weeks and you play against each other and you have a final. Mm-hmm. The way it worked through the 80s and up until 99, so I think it was 85 to 88 and then 89 to 92. Mm-hmm. What would happen was I think it was the third test in every 3 test series would actually be the World Cup game. Mm-hmm. So there was no actual World Cup tournament. And at the end of all of those test series over those 3 or 4 years, the 2 teams with the best record would then play the World Cup final. That's it. There was no actual tournament.
Yeah.
And that just sort of showed that while the thinking was good, it meant that World Cup was somewhat still relevant. It meant that if there was a 3-match test series being on and one team was dominant, then the third match still meant something. Mm-hmm. So that was still good. But it just meant the World Cup itself was practically a non-event.
Yeah, and the thing to remember too about in 1994, the Rugby League world was very much a smaller place.
Oh, yeah.
But at the same time, everyone was all right about it. Like, it wasn't a problem. And it's probably weird to look back at now and sort of be like, how was that not a problem? But it was just where the sport was at the time. So yeah, it was a very different time for the sport at international level, but weirdly enough, I still feel like it was a bit of a golden moment for international rugby league as well.
Here's a sign of the linkage between the two countries, England and Australia. January 22, the Brisbane Broncos' historic takeover of the London Crusaders becomes official. The English club will now be known as the London Broncos. And they basically got this is a great way around the salary cap if you think about it. Because any player that the Brisbane Broncos didn't want, they could send them to London. Because they own that club as well anyway. So you could probably still pay them the same amount of money, but they'd just be playing in a different comp.
And do you remember when that move happened, how exciting it was?
Oh, yeah.
Like, people over here were excited about that. And
I wanted to see what they do.
Yeah. And it was like this link up between probably the biggest club in Australia at the time, and now they had a foot in the door in London, and it was seen as like it was going to make London Rugby League big again, well, not big again, big to start with. And it was just a real time of optimism for rugby league. And I feel like we're maybe only just getting that back.
I agree, yeah. Australia Day. Australian captain Mal Meninga is awarded an Order of Australian Medal in the Australian Day Honours List. And North Sydney reluctantly released top point-scoring winger Darryl Halligan. And he made a decision to join Canterbury on a 3-year deal.
Good move for him.
Yeah. The following day, the Tooish Challenge competition is launched at Uluru. The competition offers prize money of over $700,000.
And they marketed that as League Rocks the Alice, which is pretty cool.
There you go. I didn't remember that one. January 28, Canberra released New Zealand test winger Sean Hoppy from the final year of his contract after he signed with the Auckland Warriors for 1995. He was then immediately snapped up by North Sydney for the 1994 season. So in the space of 2 days, Norths have lost one Kiwi winger and replaced it with another one.
Yeah, and it's really weird because I kind of still think of Sean Hoppy as a Norths player, and he was only there for 1 year.
Yeah, 1 season. January 29, the South Queensland Crushers make their debut in a trial against Cronulla reserve grade at Caltex Field. The Crushers find they're going tough and lose 32-16. St George defeats South 14-11 before 20,000 fans at the SFS in the Charity Shield match.
So where did the Crushers play? Did they play a season in the Queensland Cup?
Oh, they may well have.
Yeah, because if they're playing games already, that's interesting. I didn't realise they were playing games in '94.
Yeah, some of these new teams they'd play the occasional trial match throughout the year whenever they had the numbers up. But yeah, I think South Queensland may have been playing in the Queensland Cup or whatever it was known as at the time.
Yeah, I wonder what it was known as back then.
It might have still been known as the Winfield Cup then.
Oh, really? Yeah, that makes sense.
The New South Wales Rugby League and the Queensland competitions were both called the Winfield Cup for most of the 80s and early 90s, I believe. January 31, Martin O'Fire, Sean Edwards and Paul Newlove withdraw from Great Britain's lineup for the Coca-Cola World Sevens.
Wow, what a loss. Wow.
That's 3 huge losses right there.
Yeah, that might be, in off-year, maybe the best Sevens player by a long, long way. For back in 94, who would you have taken over off-year in 94 as a Sevens player?
I can only think of Mullins, but then that's based on Mullins' form at the end of 94.
Yeah.
Geez, it'd be hard.
Wow. That's crazy.
February 4, the World Sevens begin at the SFS with 27 teams participating. Western Samoa caused the first major upset when they defeated, have a guess.
Penrith.
Great Britain, 1810.
Oh, yes. Why didn't I know about this? Wow. We need to do a whole episode on this one.
That can
Far
happen.
out. Yeah. How about that 27 teams? Then this is what I'm talking about. Rugby league had this thing of just like, yeah, let's do it. Yes, 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 yes. Let's do it. Expand, expand, expand. 27 teams. They would never do that now.
Yeah. Do you remember the controversy that happened in the final of the World Sevens?
Ooh, let me think.
It wasn't anything to do with what happened on the field, really.
Did the trophy fall apart?
No.
Oh man, I can't remember.
Manly won.
Yeah. Oh yes, I do.
They won the Coca-Cola Sevens, and they were sponsored by Pepsi.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
That's awesome.
February 7. Details of the Broncos World Club Championship clash with the British champions are revealed. Brisbane expects a capacity ANZ Stadium, and this is ANZ, which is I think it's now known as QE2 Stadium in Brisbane.
Yeah.
They expected a crowd of 70,000 people, a worldwide viewing audience of 200 million, and gate and television receipts to top the $1 million mark for the match, which would be played on June the 1st.
Yeah, and this was the last World Club Challenge, I believe, that was played because obviously the seasons didn't line up. So in England, they were still playing in their winter. And so by the end of their season, they had their champion. And it was basically coming into our season. And this was really the last of the real World Club Challenge games. And when Wigan come over here, I mean, they were the best team in the world.
Yeah, they're absolute superstars. February 8. Don and Matt Rogers, sons of former great Steve Rogers, signed with the Sharks for the 94 season.
Oh, wow, that's interesting.
February 9, the Tooish Challenge competition begins in oppressive heat at Penrith. Temperatures of 30 degrees and high humidity combine to produce unbearable conditions for the players. Canberra coach Tim Sheen said, "It's all very well taking the game to the people, but the players' welfare has to be considered too."
Yeah, and I guess from an instance like that, that's where you get the drinks breaks at 20 minutes. I mean, they come in not too long after that. Some of the other destinations they had were pretty interesting. They were country destinations. So they played games in Gunnedah, Port Macquarie, Parkes, Albury, and Alice Springs. So I wonder what the temperature was in Alice Springs for those games.
Warm.
Yes, very, very warm.
Very warm. I was waiting to see how long this would take to turn up. February 10, Cronulla President Peter Gow has planned to inject $1 million of his own money into the Cronulla Leagues Club.
Far out. It's, a rugby league season's around the corner when Cronulla has a plan to save itself.
Yeah. They're broke again. Here's some more cash.
How funny is it that is probably, and the poor bugger, like he was the head of Cronulla for a long time. But that's probably not the moment that he will be remembered for. Like he putting into his own pocket and giving the club $1 million.
Yeah, no, he's if anyone doesn't know, he's best remembered for cutting up a Dragons fan's jumper with a pair of scissors.
It's unfortunate.
It's unfortunate. Accident. Yeah. We'll call it an accident.
Yeah.
These scissors just fell.
He was trying to fix it. Yeah. And to be fair,
Yeah. These things happen.
Yeah.
February 11, the heat controversy continues with Dr. Peter Fricker, Director of Medicine at the Institute of Sport, saying that the New South Wales Rugby League is flirting with danger by playing matches in extreme conditions. The league hit back at the heat controversy with Ken Arthurson explaining, "The fact is, if it wasn't for the Tooish Challenge, they'd be playing trials at the same time of the day for nothing instead of competing for $700,000 in prize money." I'd just like to say, you didn't really read the room too well there, Ken.
I don't know. I kind of like it. I like because Ken Arthurson, him running the game, and look, there were some things he wasn't good at reading the room at, but I kind of do miss having somebody that is the head of the sport. That every time they open their mouth, you don't feel like it's been run through a committee. You know. I mean, basically, Ken Arthursen's like, get stuffed.
Also, on that same day, Alan Langer's controversial tackling style is in the news again after Martin Bella is injured during a match in Brisbane.
Yeah, so for people that don't know, the rule is that if you've got a hand on a player, you can use your legs. And there was a lot of controversy at the time that Alan Langer's style was basically tripping, which is, I mean, back then it was a send-off straight away.
And it was bloody blatant tripping, but at the same time, you've got to look at the size difference that he was giving away.
Yeah. And I think the thing that really got people was that he was dead set tripping players and putting a hand on them while he did it.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't like he was wrapping them up and using his legs or anything like that.
No, he just took his leg out. And how he didn't get his leg broken more is an absolute bloody mystery.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy that there weren't a bunch of broken legs out of it.
Yeah.
Because he was flat out tripping players and doing it like with a hand on like their hip as he did it. It was that's why it was controversial.
Yeah. Feb 13, St George coach Brian Smith and Illawarra coach Graham Murray ban Channel 9 commentator Steve Roach from sideline talks during the Challenge Cup competition because of Roach's involvement on the South Sydney coaching staff.
Oh wow, that's a good one. What would he have got, do you reckon, being on the sideline? I can't think of much.
No, especially not in those games.
No.
February 14th. So this is 3 days after the big chat about heat stress. Mm-hmm. The league promised to finance immediate medical research into the effects of heat stress on players and offer to switch challenge matches from day to night starts.
Okay, well, at least they've responded in some way.
Yeah. February 15, New Zealand League President and former Kiwi coach, the League President Trevor Maxwell and former Kiwi coach Graham Lowe placed a proposal before the league to stage a New Zealand State of Origin game in 1994.
In rugby league, there's always, at least they had a proposal, hey? Like, that's as close as I've ever heard New Zealand coming to having an Origin series of their own. Like, that's the biggest step they ever made. And that's it. A proposal.
Yeah. February 18. After David Gillespie became the first player to be sent to the judiciary for a tackle on Mario Fennick, the judiciary comes under fire when they find that Gillespie is guilty and they hand him a, in quotation marks, meaningless suspension until the day before the first Winfield Cup match of the year. So, therefore, Gillespie missed no significant football.
Okay. And I guess that was probably... When did they go from doing it as weeks to games?
Oh, that's a good question.
I feel like it was weirdly not that long ago.
No, it was more of a recent thing.
Yeah, because for people that don't know, there was a point where Steve Roach got banned. And you knew exactly where I was going.
Yeah.
Before I haven't said it. Steve Roach was banned, and I believe at the time it was 4 games. Or it was interpreted that way. And so he tried to go and play games. He tried to go and sign a contract to play for a club, and I don't remember the club in England, and sit on the sidelines not playing in an effort to come back, I believe, for finals matches.
That's right. So he got suspended in, it might have been the playoff in 88.
Mm.
And yeah, he got, I think it was 4 weeks, which meant he would, if Balmain by some miraculous miracle, which they managed to achieve, made it to the grand final, he'd miss all the games. So the idea was, we'll send him over to England, we'll get him signed up to a contract, and every week that would go by, he would miss 1 Balmain game and 1 game for his English team.
And it's kind of genius.
It It'd only take 2 weeks for him to serve out his 4-game suspension, and then he could come back. So you just get a 2-week holiday over in England, and he comes back and he's ready for the last 2 games of the final series.
Yeah,
the league poo-pooed the idea.
Yeah, it didn't work. And you know what? I kind of feel like that might have been the point where they went from games to weeks, and then it was changed back.
It could have been around there. I haven't actually looked into that, but that's a very good question.
It kind of makes sense that at that point, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't the first. There were a
Was
few
there
others
another
who did
player
that.
did it? Really?
There were quite a few players, I think, who did that from time to time, especially when it was around finals time.
See, I don't remember that. I mean, do you remember the absolute, meltdown that happened when he did that?
Oh, yeah. Everyone's blowing up. You can't do that. That's cheating. You know, well, it's not yet.
Yeah, not yet.
But yeah, the Broncos claim that the league is victimising Alan Langer by making its own interpretation of the International Board's new tackling rule. Now, just to give people a bit of an idea, since about 1992, there's been this growing discontent between the Broncos and the league. And so every time any sort of contentious thing came up and involved the Broncos immediately said, oh, some sort of conspiracy against us.
Yeah, and it's something that, I mean, it used to be very much, and look, it still is at times, it used to be absolutely massive in State of Origin, where the Queensland team and Queensland Rugby League basically felt like they were victims of a lot of decisions that went against them from the powers that be in Sydney. And then when the Broncos come into the competition, obviously at first they're, shiny and new, and everyone loves, having this new team, this Queensland team in the New South Wales Rugby League comp. But then it didn't take too many seasons where the Broncos, they knew they were the most powerful team in the league. They knew they were the richest team in the league. They knew that, and keep in mind, this is just after they've won back-to-back titles with superstars all across their team. And they did. It was something that had kept building, where they felt hard done by for a lot of different reasons. And this sort of thing, it was like, now it wasn't just the big issues they had problems with, it was the little ones as well. And it was that discontent, as you said, that just snowballed.
It certainly did, and we know what happened when it exploded, which we'll discuss in another episode not too far away. Mm-hmm. February 27, former league grand final referee Darcy Lawler passes away in Sydney at the age of 75.
Oh, wow.
Darcy Lawler refereed one of the more contentious grand finals between St George and West. I feel like it's 63 or 64. Mm-hmm. It's played in the mud. And that's when I think that's the one when the picture was taken that became the Winfield Cup statue. And, what's the NRL trophy now? Mm-hmm. Of Proven and Summons.
The Gladiators picture.
That's the one. And there was a moment apparently in the game where one of the St George players got tackled. The West players swear that they heard the referee say that, the tackle was completed or held. Then the St George player just got back up to his feet and ran off down the sideline and scored the try, which won the game. And the referee said, I didn't say anything. And there was suggestions that the referee had put money on St George to win the game.
Yeah, and West players for decades after that were absolutely filthy. Like, I remember, what was his name? The other player in the Gladiators. What was his name?
Proven or Summons?
Summons. That's it.
Yes.
Arthur Summons. I remember him at, I believe it was a Dally M's thing, and it was brought up in a roundabout way, like obviously not directly. And the mood of the room changed because he was still filthy about it.
Yeah. British club Wigan make history by tying 12-year-old Darryl Lacey to the club. He will not be allowed to turn professional until the age of 17.
Wow, that was back when they were developing players, I guess.
I need to see if he actually made it into first grade.
What was his name? Darren Lacey?
Daryl Lacey.
Darrell Lacey. I don't
He
remember
did.
Darrell Lacey. How many games did he play?
Not much.
Yeah.
So he played for Oldham in 2001 and Lancashire Lynx in 2004.
Wow, that'd be interesting. I wonder if we could find him and interview him.
Yeah, that'd be pretty amazing.
Mm.
Never know. So now we're moving into March. March 2. Rugby League Week reports of rumours of a breakaway competition as relations between the Broncos and the New South Wales Rugby League continue to deteriorate. The centre of the dispute surrounds the Broncos' decision to sell 20% of their company to Northern Rivers Holdings, a company listed on the stock exchange and chaired by Broncos boss Paul Morgan.
Yeah, and it was interesting because a lot of people feel that 95 is the Super League season, but it was all definitely in the background in the 94 season. And weirdly enough, it was something that didn't come through in the media of the game. Like, it wasn't something that everyone was talking about, but it was being talked about in the background.
Yeah. It just sort of simmered along for quite a while.
Mm.
Just seeing what else is on here. Eastern Suburbs winger Shane Werrett wins the prestigious Rugby League sprint race from Canterbury's Brett Dallas and Balmain's Shane Russell. Former St George great Rod Reddy wins the Golden Oldie Sprint. Whatever happened to the league sprint race? That was a classic for a long time. We don't have it anymore.
Yeah, I've never understood why they don't make it a thing even on grand final day or something, because it would be super exciting.
Yeah, imagine the people they could put in it today.
Do you remember the disappointment when we had so many players that were super, super fast and it ended up the quickest one was Werrett? It was kind of very disappointing to a lot of people. It's like when Leo and Ryan beat Martin Offia.
Yeah.
Just that wasn't supposed to happen. Everyone was sad about
that. Here's a good one. March 8. Perth Western Reds confirmed that they will field a team in the South African National Comp in 1995 in a bid to corner the market on playing talent there. Based in Pretoria, the team will be called the Eastern Reds.
I don't remember that at all. That's incredible. I wonder if that actually ended up happening, though.
Yeah, I must admit, I don't remember that one either.
No.
March 11. New South Wales Rugby League General Manager John Quayle predicts a $100 million turnover for the league in 1995 on the eve of the 94 season.
That's incredible.
God, that's big money.
That really, and that's back in 1994. That's something that I would suggest Super League isn't doing now. I know that the Australian Rugby Union wouldn't be doing that right now.
No. And just insane money. It really was.
Yeah.
March 13. Newcastle's Andrew Johns makes a dream first grade debut, although it was actually his fourth game, scoring 23 points for his team. Everyone talks about the fact that he scored 23 points on debut.
Mm-hmm.
He played 3 games in 1993, albeit all of them were off the bench, but there was 3 games in 1993. So if we're talking about debut, no, he didn't.
Yeah, and it's weird that still gets perpetuated. I understand why, because it's a good story, especially considering the player he became. But yeah, I like it when we are actually accurate with history, and I like that you try and correct the record.
Oh, you got it. I've known that. I've heard about that one all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Added to one of the list of myths and legends that goes on in the game.
Definitely.
March 16, Canterbury re-signed centre Matthew Ryan from Coffs Harbour.
Okay, I don't remember Matthew Ryan, hey?
Oh, he's a pretty good centre.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, the less we say about Canterbury and Coffs Harbour, the best.
Yeah, probably for the best, yeah.
Manly Chief Executive Frank Stanton denies the axing of Kiwi imports Gene Namu and Daryl Beasley was due to the club overspending its salary cap. And State of Origin referee David Manson is dropped to reserve grade for missing a crucial incident in the Brisbane versus Parramatta game.
I wonder what it was he missed. Wow, they dropped David Manson. David Manson would have been definitely a top 3
definitely.
referee, if not the best. Interesting.
March 18, Gold Coast produced the first big upset of the 94 season with a stunning 25-12 win over Brisbane at Carrara.
That would have been massive. That was back when they were called the Seagulls as well.
Yeah.
Were they still coached by, were they coached by Wally Lewis?
In 94?
Yeah, let me have a look. Gold Coast Seagulls. Coach.
No, John Harvey.
Yeah. Okay.
March 20, Canterbury prop Martin Bella unleashes a tirade at the league's drug testing procedures after he's detained late into the night after training to produce a urine sample.
Far out. I don't remember that one.
How does it take you to take a piss, Marty?
I know, just drink some water, dude.
Yeah, mate, just hook in. Have a few beers.
Exactly.
March 21, Mark Guy is released from the final year of his contract with Balmain after repeated disciplinary problems. Mark Guy's career in this 93-94 period was... He said it was literally a mess, and there's a lot of reasons behind it. Without going into it too much, I mean, he had a few problems with the Panthers, which is why he left there abruptly. Some of that could actually be stemmed to the loss of his very good friend Ben Alexander when he passed away. And he just... I think... I mean, we'll obviously get him on and ask him, but from a fan standpoint, when I was watching him there, I was so excited when he came to Balmain. But watching him play, it looked like the passion for the game had disappeared from him. And he was just going through the motions. Yeah. And at this period, there was a little bit of toing and froing going on between Balmain and the Western Reds and Penrith over Mark Guy and what he was going to do for 94 and 95. And so I think in the end, Balmain just said, we're not going to bother with this anymore and just cut him.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, as a Panthers fan, and it's going to be interesting to talk to him about it, and we don't want to go down a sad road with him either, because we just don't want to. But for me, when I look back, and you've got to remember he was an Australian player, and he was a State of Origin player, and I think he'd felt let down by selectors and a lot of people in those setups by the instructions he was given and the way they wanted him to play, and he went out and played exactly how they asked him, and then sort of turned on him when he did. And then obviously with everything that had happened at Penrith, and he was looking for a change going to Balmain, and then when that didn't work out, it just feels like it might be a sad moment in his life more than anything, and it come through in his football. And thankfully, in 95, he did go to the Western Reds, and I would suggest that he would say it might have been the best thing he's ever done in terms of his career anyway. Because, I mean, he still goes over to Perth for events and stuff like that, and is the biggest supporter of having a Perth team in the comp, and always has been.
He has, yeah. The following day, Balmain released Jason Sinclair. Officials reject suggestions of disharmony at the club. You've only lost 2 first graders in 2 days.
Yeah, there's nothing going on there. Yeah. Now, did Jason Sinclair go to Souths?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, okay.
He was actually around this period too, regularly talked about as being a potential Origin player. And I think he was drafted in as a emergency reserve might have been the 93 Origin series.
Yeah, he was there or thereabouts. A very good... when he was at the best of his form, he was a very handy first grader. Yeah. So, yeah, he's one of those ones you kind of remember. And it's weird, he's one of those ones you remember, but history, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but history really only remembers the superstars. And so players like Jason Sinclair sometimes get left out of that. And so it's cool to talk about them, like in episodes
Absolutely.
like this. I love it.
March 24, the league announced plans to conduct random audits on clubs to target players receiving unearned benefits from sponsors, licensed clubs, and supporters.
Third-party payments.
Yep,
third-party
payments.
About. Yeah.
This is only 4 years after a salary cap's come in, they decided to start looking into that.
Yeah, that's pretty funny, hey? And this is definitely in, like, the heyday of rumours that players had certain poker machines that they would get money from, yes. Or that wives or girlfriends would be bar staff on gigantic salaries, which is something that went on over in England quite a bit. So this is in that. This is in the prime era of that in Australia.
Yes. March 27. Alice Flint is elected to the Gold Coast Football Club Board of Directors. She's the first woman to hold such a post.
Nice. That's a long time before a lot of the stuff we've seen in recent years. Yeah. No one mentions it.
March 30, speculation of the future of Mark Guy continues after the Penrith board declared they would welcome him back provided he was a free agent. Now, what I recall from this period, so this may be wrong, but from what I recall in this period, he'd had agreed to terms with the Western Reds for the 95 season at the start of, or maybe at the end of 93 or the start of 94. When Balmain released him, Penrith said, "We would be happy to have you back. We can't offer you much money in the first year, but would be a back-ended contract so long as you agree to sign for 3 years. We will give you the right amount that you should have, but you'll get most of it in the second and third seasons." And it meant that Guy would basically be paying for next to nothing in 94, but on huge money for 95, 96. And he only wanted a 1-year contract with Penrith. He just wanted to play 94 with them and then go to Western Reds. He was committed to the Reds. He was definitely going to go there. So he didn't want to sign the 3-year deal with Penrith. He just wanted 1 year there. And they didn't want to have a bar of that either because they couldn't afford him because of their cap pressures.
Yeah, and I kind of see all sides of that.
Yeah.
Like, that's one of those things where no one's in the right or wrong. It's just the situation.
Yeah, they'll try and, I think, when you look at it, I think Penrith are doing their best to try and help him out, but at the same time, there's only so much they could have done.
Yeah, I guess when you look at it from the Penrith point of view as well, if they were worried that maybe the troubles were going to follow him to Penrith, if they then were able to cut him in 94, they maybe wouldn't have had to have paid out the last 2 years of his contract at that time. Because this is back when the Players Association was basically non-existent. So
that's right.
Like, players' protections for their salaries were a bit different back then.
April 2, North Sydney's mascot is marching the sideline at North Sydney Oval after allegedly abusing a touch judge during the Bears versus Penrith match.
Yeah, and Barney the Bear, sent from the ground, and he was the team manager, the field operations manager for the New South Wales Rugby League at the time, a bloke called Eric Cox. He had him ejected from the ground, and then South Sydney, they banned him for a month from being on the sideline. Now, I can't remember Barney the Bear causing that much trouble. That was more something that Captain Charger liked to do a few years later up on the Gold Coast.
Former New Zealand coach Graham Eadie threatens to force Australian clubs to release players for a New Zealand State of Origin style game. That didn't go down too well.
Yeah, it didn't happen.
April 9, Brad Godden, Knights player, lands himself in hot water after getting involved in the play while he was on his way to the sin bin. He was subsequently fined $1,000 by the judiciary. I think what happened was, as he was coming off the field, the opposition team took a quick tap, and they ran towards where he was, so he decided to make the tackle.
Yeah, and from memory, it was almost a reflex action by him.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't like it just was a reflex. You know, they ran at him and he sort of, he wrapped them up.
April 10, the Sunday Telegraph declares that South Sydney manager Alan Jones has put together a $7 million rescue package for the club.
Okay. And this is at a time when South Sydney is dying. Like, they're literally dying. They've been and also ran for forever at this point. They had a bit of a peak in 89, I guess, where they come back for a little while and then just fell off a cliff again. And Souths are in real trouble at this point, completely unloved, and it was very sad to see.
Yeah. Western Reds coach Peter Mulholland confirms Mark Guy will play for the Perth club in 1995.
Yeah, good signing. Good move for him.
Absolutely. April 12, Canterbury deny Darren Smith's relegation from the starting lineup is related to his failure to meet a deadline for signing a new contract. And the very next day, Peter Moore says Darren Smith is no longer part of the club's plans for 1995.
Yeah, well, you know, it's the family club, unless you do something they don't like, and then you're out.
Yep. April 13, Balmain signed Great Britain Test winger John Bentley for the remainder of the 94 season.
Now, I don't remember John Bentley.
I remember him playing for Balmain. I don't remember him being anything fantastic. Like, he wasn't bad, but he wasn't exactly, I don't know, world class.
Yeah. I guess that sums up the vast majority of English wingers not called, off here.
This is right. Michael Hancock rejects an offer from the Crushers to sign before re-signing for 2 more seasons with the Broncos. And Mark Guy confirms that he will join the Western Reds in 95.
Isn't it funny that with a lot of these contract moves, very soon none of it matters?
Yeah. April 17, Canberra Chief Executive Kevin Neal reveals that the club has held talks with Mark Guy and may sign him for the remainder of the 94 season.
Whoa. Man, can you imagine if he'd played for the Raiders?
Yeah, put him in that side. My God.
Yeah. I wonder why that didn't go through.
Don't know. What have we got here? The league formulate plans to restructure the salary cap by adopting an assessment system for Winfield Cup players. And April 18, the Western Reds, South Queensland Crushers and North Queensland Cowboys are formally accepted into the 1995 competition.
That's awesome. It was so exciting too. Do you remember when they announced they were all going to be part of the competition to 4 new teams and from such different areas? It was just such an exciting time for the game.
Yeah. April 22, the Knights launch an art union in a bid to ease crippling debts. The Knights hope to raise more than $1 million from the sale of the tickets.
I don't remember that.
I wonder who won the house. Well, I dare say it's a house that they were selling.
It's a good question.
East former Rugby Union international Brian Smith announces his retirement from rugby league to concentrate on his career in advertising.
That was a massive moment for the game.
It was. The New South Wales Rugby League announced an overhaul of their judiciary system following criticism of decisions made by the tribunal. Chairman Vince Bruce will be granted power to cite all players involved in cases before the tribunal.
Okay, I don't really understand what that change means, but
there you go.
It's a good thing.
West forward Darren Brown is released from the club for discipline reasons and is immediately snapped up by Penrith literally minutes later.
Oh, that's kind of strange. I don't like moves like that.
Yeah,
I don't remember Darren Brown. I don't remember him at all. But, yeah. He must have known. Whatever he did, he must have been like, I'm gone here. You got to get me a contract somewhere else.
Makes you wonder how much of that Like he had to have gone to Penrith and told them that he was looking at leaving.
Yeah, they were like, "What did you do?" Oh man, okay, we'll sign you.
May 3, West's second rower Stephen Kearney announces he has signed a 2-year deal with the Auckland Warriors.
And he was a hot commodity back then. Like
He's
he
a
was a
bloody
very
handy
young
back
player.
rower.
Yeah, very good player. People probably forget that he was playing for Wests early on in his career, and it was a bit strange the way that they put together that Auckland Warriors team. They tried to get a lot of star players, and it felt like they did a good job, but almost as though team chemistry was completely absent from the club.
Yeah.
There was something that was completely missing. Everything on paper looked like a juggernaut, but there was something missing.
May 5, Balmain veteran Benny Elias announces he'll retire at the end of the year.
Yeah, and he was still playing good footy too.
Yeah, he was in pretty good form. I think he played... Did he play Origin in 94?
I feel like he did.
Yeah.
Let me pull it up. I'll pull this up just now. I'm almost certain that he did. I'll go to the first game of the series. Yeah, he did. Yeah. So yeah.
There you go. So he's gone out on a high.
Mm.
May the 8th, a glandular fever scare disrupts preparations for East clash with Illawarra. After consultations with medical experts, the game is allowed to proceed. Then we've got the Sunday Telegraph reveals that Canberra centre Ruben Wiki has signed 2 contracts for 1995.
And now, did he sign for the Warriors?
Yeah, one with the Raiders and another for the Warriors.
Yeah. I remember that one, actually. And once again, funnily enough, none of it matters in about 6 months from now.
Yeah. Same day, Manly signed rookies Daniel Gartner and Stephen Menzies to 3-year contracts.
Oh, wow. They're two amazing back rowers.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
There's another one, Daniel Gartner. His career was cut short by injuries. I think he had leg injuries and things like that.
Yeah.
But fantastic player.
I'll chuck another one in there at you. Nick Kosef.
Yeah. He might have been... Well, who would you compare Nick Kosef to now?
Oh, that's a good question. God, he was a damn good player.
He really, really was. And it's such a shame that his career was cut short.
Who else we got here? Gold Coast with another big upset, this time an 8-4 victory over Canberra.
Oh, wow.
May the 10th, Brisbane CEO John Rebo calls for fines of $100,000 to be imposed upon clubs who approach players who are contracted to rival clubs mid-season.
Oh, my goodness. I can't believe that one. Like, first of all, John Rebo's calling for fines like that because he knows he's really got the only club that could pay them fines, first of all. And second of all, I mean, it might not even be 6 months from now that he's at the center of it. We're going to do that. We're going to do that episode in the next couple of days. We're going to do it today, but we wanted to just do a little bit more research and and prepare a little bit more for it because it's going to be a very long episode, but it's coming up and we're primed for it.
Absolutely. May 12th, the Governor of the Reserve Bank, Bernie Fraser, accepts a position on the league's 3-man salary cap committee.
Yeah, he's a hard hitter. Is it good get?
Yeah. The Telegraph Mirror reveals that the Canterbury Club is paving the way for private ownership by sending letters of intent to potential investors.
Oh, wow, I don't remember that one.
What you're starting to see here is a lot of clubs are trying to find ways to shore up their financial stability long term.
Yeah, especially Sydney clubs. And a lot of them at this time were manoeuvring because they could see the writing on the wall. When the New South Wales Rugby League, that very quickly turned into basically the ARL, when they decided that they were going to bring in the 4 extra teams. The whole point was that we're going to bring in these teams and a bunch of Sydney clubs are going to die off. Like, that was literally the plan. So you're starting to see Sydney clubs there looking to their future and getting away from the chook raffle days into being modern businesses.
Yeah. May 15, popular commentator Daryl Eastlake is sacked from Channel 9 State of Origin coverage. I don't know what he did.
Yeah, I wonder, because he used to be the voice of State of Origin.
Oh, yeah.
And made it, and was as much about making it popular as even the players were. I mean, that's how integral he was to it. So, yeah, I wonder what happened there.
Don't know. May 17, New South Wales Central Coast Club Yamina signed Mark Guy for the remainder of the season.
Yeah, the Yamina Bunnies.
I heard this mentioned. It might have been Paul Kent on one of the Matty Johns podcasts. And he said that he was playing for a team in the same competition that Yamina was in while he was still working as a journo. And he'd written an article that had been critical of Mark Guy a few weeks prior. And he said, I then had to come up in a game against Mark Guy in that competition there. And he said, he gave me that look like he wanted to absolutely kill me, and he ran out there and just absolutely nailed me time and time again. And I went, I wish that game was recorded.
I know, hey. It'd be interesting. Can you imagine knowing you'd pissed off Mark Guy and you know that he's coming after you, and then you look across the field and he's just staring you down, and it's like, oh, he really is coming after me. That would be absolutely terrifying.
That's insane.
And by the way, he's doing it playing for your minor. He isn't doing it with TV cameras everywhere.
Yeah. You get all sorts of shit out there.
Oh, jeez.
Former Test winger Eric Groth announces he will make a comeback for Group 7 club Milton Ulladulla. There was talk.
Who was then?
Good question. There was talk too around this time. It might have even been a few years earlier that he'd been approached by Balmain to go and play for them. It might have been 1992 that went on.
Really? It's funny because they feel like those Eels players, they feel like a completely different era to 1994. But this isn't too much longer after Peter Sterling retired, Brett Kenny. You know, it's really, really close to the end of their careers.
Groth retired in 1990 at the age of 30. So he was 34 when he made this comeback.
Yeah, far out.
May 18. We're in State of Origin talk now.
Okay.
Queensland choose Bill Harrigan as referee for the opening Origin clash at the SFS. The Maroons' nomination draws heavy criticism from former referee Barry Gummersall, who said, "The QRL has lost its guts. They're being dictated to."
That's a very... First of all, why does Queensland get to appoint the referee? That's my first question. And the second question, I mean, Bill Harrigan back then was controversial. I don't feel as though you could say back then Bill Harrigan was definitely the best referee in the game.
No.
It was an interesting choice. I wonder why they wanted him to control the game. And Barry Gummersall isn't going to like it unless a bloody Queenslander's controlling the game anyway. Bloody exactly right. Quote he was at that point. And good luck to him. I love it. I would not change a thing about him, by the way. I love it.
Bradley Clyde is ruled out of New South Wales team for the opening Origin counter as he suffered from a foot injury.
Now, Bradley Clyde at this point is one of the world's best players. I would still consider him, in terms of a lock, and he was probably the last true great lock that we had in the game, I would suggest.
Yeah, he
Like
carried that legacy that Wayne Pearce sort of took on when he took over from Ray Price, where the lock was much more fitter and much more capable, especially defensively.
Yep. Got through a lot of work. He was very mobile, great athlete. Had a little bit
ball
of
runner
in him. Yeah, great hole runner. And yeah, one of the world's best players at the time.
Absolutely. May 23, a try described by the Sydney Morning Herald as the try from hell robbed New South Wales of victory in the Origin opener. That would be the miracle try that I wrote a poem about.
Yeah. I feel like if we took a minute, we could probably both do the call that Ray Warren did. Like, do you remember watching that game?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, that was horrible.
That last minute was the longest minute.
It really was. It really was. And like we had it. We'd won the game. And that was really just, oh man, it was so horrible.
It was. May 25, the Telegraph reveals a Gold Coast player served an 8-week suspension after testing positive to the use of steroids. Doesn't say which player it was.
Wow. I don't remember that.
Here's an interesting one. May 27, Wayne Bennett calls for the implementation of a second referee to improve the refereeing standards.
And I would say right now that clearing up the ruck would have helped Brisbane to no end. And that is the only reason he would say that, to help his team.
Same day, Broncos CEO John Rebo claims the league's new salary cap means 4 internationals will have to leave his club. Wow.
Will he be all right? A club that brought in the likes of Glenn Lazarus when they needed a forward. Hopefully they're all right.
Yeah, I reckon they'll get by.
Yeah.
The league reveals details of the 95 Premiership draw. The Warriors will kick off the new competition against Brisbane at Mount Smart Stadium.
I remember that game too. Remember them running out the tunnel?
Yeah.
It was pretty cool.
It certainly was. Brett Mullins and Dean Pay are called into the State of Origin team for the second game in place of Rod Wishart and David Gillespie. Martin Bella is relegated from Queensland's lineup after 19 consecutive games in a Maroons jersey. And Saints' Gordon Tallis is the new fresh reserve.
Ooh, wow. So it's interesting that Mullins come into the side because, 94 was Mullins' year. He was unbelievable.
Yeah. So the Origin selectors chose for game 1 to stick with the team they had in 93 pretty much, which meant Balmain, who I think had only had, at that point, only one win in 7 games or 8 games, they had both Ben Elias and Tim Brasher playing in the Origin side.
Mm-hmm.
Brasher deserved to be there.
Yeah, and the Brasher was like, he was one of those proper Origin players. Like, you got a 9 or a 10 out of Tim Brasher at Origin level every single time.
Yeah. Oh, he was just, like Dale Shearer and Wally Lewis. You put him in an important game, and his performance just increased tenfold.
Mm-hmm. Just with that second Origin, because Brett Mullins ended up coming in as the winger for that second Origin game.
Yep.
And just looking at the back line for the Blues, and it's like Tim Brasher, Andrew Eddinghausen, Brad Fittler, Paul McGregor, and Brett Mullins. What a back line that is.
Jesus Christ.
That's incredible. And they were up against, how about this one? Julian O'Neill, who at the time, how would you describe Julian O'Neill? He was like a Cameron Munster in terms of his ability and his playmaking and stuff, but he was probably a little bit more athletic. So Julian O'Neill, Michael Hancock, Mal Meninga, Mark Coyne, and Willie Kahn. Not bad.
And Steve Renouf was not there because he was suspended after a high tackle a few weeks beforehand.
Wow.
Imagine having him in there instead of Coyne. But then again, Coyne scored that miracle try.
Yeah, and Mark Coyne's an Origin legend for that moment, but he was also a very good player.
Yeah, he was no mug.
And even his club career as well.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, he knows where to go on a night out too.
Oh yeah, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Know what I mean? Know what I mean? June 1, champion Wigan side steal Brisbane's title as world champions with a 20-14 victory in the World Club Challenge match at Brisbane's ANZ Stadium. The game is watched by a crowd of more than 54,000. Queensland coach Wally Lewis blasted the performance of referee Greg McCullum in the game, labelling it one of the worst displays he'd ever seen.
Oh, geez. I don't remember the refereeing being an issue, but, to have Brisbane lose in Brisbane, Wigan come over and we're the best team in the world. That's all it was. They come into our backyard, middle of the season, and beat the Broncos. And that was it. There was no way around it.
June 2, Great Britain CEO Maurice Lindsay suggests future World Club Challenge games may be played in Hong Kong.
Yeah, there's been a lot of weird rumours about the World Club Challenge over the years. Maurice Lindsay, he's another one that if you're a little bit younger, you don't realise the weight that Maurice Lindsay had as an administrator in rugby league. I dare say at this point he is the most powerful person in rugby league. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I'd say that because it's worth noting the English game was, as I said at the start, it was. For a long time it had been the premier competition, and in '94, the New South Wales Rugby League is the closest it's ever been to parity, I guess, with the English competition.
Mm-hmm.
And if it had not been for the Super League war, I dare say that the takeover would have happened probably a little bit more quickly in '95. That sort of split ranks a bit, and it happened anyway in '96, '97.
Yeah, and the thing about Maurice Lindsay, this was probably the height of his power in the game, but he was still wielding that power up to 2001, which we talked about a little bit in an episode not too long ago. He ended up moving into soccer. I think he's still involved in soccer.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I felt like it was a loss for the British game because he was, in some ways the British game had to move on from having not really having his involvement, but they needed somebody else to step up. Unfortunately, no one ever has. And yeah, it's interesting to hear Maurice Lindsay's name brought up from '94 because yeah, he was the man.
He was. June 3. Jack Gibson denies that the East are interested in New South Wales Origin coach Phil Gould as their first grade coach for 1995. The Auckland Warriors signed Wigan's former All Black star Frano Bodica to a 2-year contract. And French all-time great Puig Burr dies at the age of 69.
Oh, wow. I didn't realise he died in 1994.
Yeah, he's
That's very sad.
Immense icon. Just to put it in perspective, he was to French Rugby League what Clive Churchill was to Australian Rugby League. And many people at the time would tell you that they were pretty much equals as far as on-field ability.
Yeah, he was you read some of the stories about him. Absolutely incredible.
Very flamboyant.
And didn't like to defend at all.
Yeah.
Just didn't think it was his job.
Yeah, that's right. There was a well-known story along the lines of a reporter asked Puig Burr one day, "Why don't you do any tackling?" And he says, "See all those men up there in front of me? That's their job. I'm just here to do the running around and zipping in and out, scoring all the tries, kicking all the goals." He knew his role.
And the thing was and I guess the only player I can really line him up against in terms of rugby league all time and I don't know if you'll agree with me on this, maybe a Jason Taumalolo, in the fact that you've got this one player who all of a sudden this juggernaut is built around. And you've got to beat this juggernaut, but then you've also got to beat the individual brilliance of this one player as well, that stands alongside the very best that anyone else has. And it's a shame that French Rugby League didn't really get a chance to build on the back of them French sides that he played in. Yeah. But I dare say that if you just go on International Rugby League, hard to say that he's not maybe a top 5 player of all time just on international games. Because he had made that big of an impact.
Yeah, agreed. He's definitely up there. June 6, Mal Meninga hits back at critics who claim his form does not warrant selection as captain for the Kangaroos tour. Meninga said, "There's certain sections of the Sydney media which bring it up every year at this stage of the season."
Yeah, and that's that Queensland, everyone's out to get me in Sydney.
Siege mentality, yeah.
Yeah.
June 8, an Australian record crowd of 87,161 watched the second State of Origin match at the MCG.
I remember that too. That was incredible. I remember the players talking about, and it's kind of weird because, I mean, the size of that crowd, I'm trying to think when we've had crowds like that in rugby league prior to 1994. They obviously had that one at Odsal Stadium, which was, I mean, some people say it was 120,000 people there. But rugby league players in Australia had not played this generation hadn't played in front of a crowd like that. And I remember them talking about the impact that the sheer noise had on them when they ran out.
Yeah, I think the closest or the biggest crowd before that for rugby league in Australia would have been one of the grand finals, in the 60s, where I think 65,000 turned up the SCG, and they were sitting on the roof.
Yeah, that was the one before that, and then it was the State of Origin match there, and the next one was the grand final that was played in, what would that have been, 1999's grand final, at the new ANZ Stadium in Sydney, the Olympic Stadium.
Yes, when it was at its maximum size. June 11, Wiggins Dennis Betts signs a 5-year deal with the Auckland Warriors.
Yeah, interesting that the Auckland team is looking to Great Britain for forwards.
June 14, Eastern Suburbs appoint Bernie Gurr as CEO for 1995. June 15, Paul Langmack quits as Western Suburbs captain. June 17, Bill Harrigan admits there is bad blood between him and the New South Wales camp in the lead up to the final State of Origin match.
Which is interesting because the Queenslanders didn't like him and the New South Wales team didn't like him, which means he was probably doing something right.
Yeah. His job.
Yeah.
June 17 also, the Lang Park Trust announced a major sponsorship deal with the finance company which will lead to Queensland's most famous rugby league venue being renamed Suncorp Stadium.
Now, when we had a look at this before recording this episode, I think we were both shocked that it's been called Suncorp Stadium for that long.
Yeah, I thought it was an NRL era type thing.
Yeah, same here. And I guess when you look back at it at this point, they played Origin games there and the South Queensland Crushers played there, which the Crushers didn't have a high profile at all. But you would only see it for Origin, and they definitely weren't calling it Suncorp Stadium during Origin games. They were calling it Lang Park. And so it was only when the Broncos went back to Suncorp Stadium that you kind of started hearing the name come up regularly. So I think that's why we feel as though it's an NRL era name.
That's right. Here's another one I don't remember. June 18, the Telegraph reports Mal Meninga is to be offered a lucrative 5-year deal to play out his career with the London Broncos.
I don't remember that, hey? Wow.
Same.
Yeah.
And he would have killed it too.
Oh, he would have, yeah.
It's worth noting that at that time too, Mel Meninga was 34 years old when that offer was put to him.
Oh. He was still in good form, though.
Oh, yeah, he was. June 19. Ben Elias admits he is tempted to shelve retirement plans after receiving offers from 2 Winfield Cup clubs.
I would love to know what clubs they were.
Probably Balmain. Yeah, that would be good to know. Selectors name Australia's team for the one-off test against France on July 6. They stressed that Mal Meninga and Alan Langer were not automatic selections. Brett Mullins, Tim Brasher, Paul McGregor and Mark Hone are selected to play their first tests.
Wow, Mark Hone was another very, very good forward. I would love to play France mid-season again. They're not strong enough at the moment. It would be very, very one-sided. But, yeah. This is Rugby League in 1994. They're playing France mid-season. How cool is that?
Bloody awesome. June 25, Balmain coach Wayne Pearce declares the club will make wholesale personnel changes for 95 following the team's 22-6 loss to Illawarra in a poorly attended game at Optus Oval in Melbourne.
I think I remember that game when they went down there, hey?
Yeah.
God knows why I remember it, but yeah.
June 29. How did this happen? Alan Langer is cleared of a spear tackle on Canberra's David Furner.
How is that even possible?
How did he do that?
Yeah. Man, I'd like to see that tackle.
Kerrod Walters is found guilty of a illegal tackle and receives a 2-match penalty. The following day, he launches a scathing tirade on the judiciary claiming prejudice against the Broncos, and he's backed up by Wayne Bennett and John Rebo, of course.
I'm glad that there were some neutrals there to back him up.
Yes.
But here's the thing. How many now, like it's starting to get more and more these, they're out to get us from Queenslanders.
Yeah. The siege mentality was very strong up there in Brisbane at the time. July 1, Broncos winger Willie Kahn undergoes brain scans after being heavily concussed in the third State of Origin match. Now, in the latter years of Willie Kahn's career, he copped a ton of head-high tackles and a lot of concussions, which had to have been part of the reason why he retired.
Yeah, I think he did an interview with Andrew Voss, and it was really interesting. He talked a little bit about the head knocks he got. And I believe that he also was interviewed not that long ago about the concussions and if he had any after effects from it. He ended up his career tailed off pretty quickly, and he ended up actually playing rugby union for the Queensland Rugby Union team as well.
That's right, yeah. Hooker Kerrod Walters has been called before the league's board to explain why he should escape a $10,000 fine for criticising the judiciary.
Wow. Sam Burgess taking notes.
There you go. Bradley Clyde suffers heavy concussion in the Raiders' 25-10 loss to North at North Sydney Oval. The concussion later rules him out of the one-off test against France, and his place is taken by North Sydney second rower David Fairley.
Wow, that's interesting. That that was in June or July?
July.
Okay, because he ends up having a devastating concussion. I guess it's only about 3 months later.
Yeah, absolutely. July 3, East President Nick Politis rallies behind embattled coach Mark Murray despite continuing rumours linking Phil Gould with the club. July 4, the next day, Mark Murray is sacked as Eastern Suburbs coach, opening the door for Phil Gould to take over in 95.
And there's something I want to say about Eastern Suburbs. At this point, they're kind of like South Sydney in that they have been an also-ran for as long as people can remember. The players that they sign are always at the end of their careers. Like, they're nowhere. They are just a completely different thing to what you see these days. They were a rubbish club.
Yeah, they were. July 9, the Sydney Morning Herald reveals that an Adelaide consortium are to officially lodge an application to join the competition by 1998.
Now, I would love to know who that consortium is and whether, because you said it was the Telegraph, yeah?
Sydney Morning Herald.
Sydney Morning Herald, okay. Because I guess at this point, you're starting to get towards manoeuvring by media companies. And so the stories that are going to start to come out pretty soon are going to be, there's going to be a weight behind them that is self-interest.
Absolutely. Same day, referee Bill Harrigan twice sends Penrith coach Phil Gould from the sideline during a heated clash at Caltex Field.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Everyone remembers that one.
And by the way, Gus has a glorious mullet for that game. It is a thing of beauty.
Oh, yeah, magnificent.
Mm.
July 13, Cronulla re-signed sponsors Reebok for the next 3 years in a $1.5 million sponsorship deal.
It's going to save them.
Yeah, again.
Yeah.
The Telegraph Mirror reveals North Sydney have been fined $87,000 for breaching the salary cap.
Oh, I don't remember that, hey?
That's hefty.
That is very, very hefty. They had a great season this year too.
Oh, they were the second best team all year.
Mm-hmm.
July 15, Balmain's second row Paul Sirenen is tempted by a $500,000 deal to play for Cronulla for 2 years. I do remember that because there was I vaguely recall that there was suggestions that instead of having the huge money going on, that Cronulla were tempted to consider having Andrew Eddinghausen up and making it a straight swap.
Oh my goodness. I wonder why he didn't pick up that deal then.
I think both players were so loyal to their clubs that they just couldn't see themselves doing it.
Yeah.
But $500,000 deal in '94.
That's incredible.
That's insane money. I mean, it's deserved too because Ciro he's at his he's in his peak of his career here, and he stayed at this elite level for another 2 or 3 seasons, and had been for several seasons before as well. He was just one of those blokes who just got to the elite level and just stayed there.
And he was one of the first picked for any rep team. Yeah, he was just so super reliable.
He was. July 18, a marathon meeting between Phil Gould and Bill Harrigan ends with the Penrith club being fined $4,000 and Gould apologising to Harrigan.
I would love to have been there for that, eh?
That would have been fantastic.
Yeah.
Brisbane hooker Kerr Boulders is fined $5,000 for accusing the judiciary of prejudice. So that's a downgrade from the $10,000 he was first hit with.
I tell you what, Craig Bellamy would fall off his chair reading that.
The league approve a rise in the maximum salary cap to $1.8 million.
Big bucks. It's funny. A couple of months from now, none of it matters.
Here's an interesting one. The International Rugby League Board dispenses a rule that requires referees from neutral countries for test matches.
Oh, wow. I wonder why it was put in at that time.
It's a very interesting question.
July
19. Phil Gould is officially appointed coach of East for 1995, just 12 hours after quitting from Penrith.
Yeah, it was nice. It was nice.
Gould.
They definitely... Look, the whole Penrith club needed changes at that time. And you could see by the players that had left the club, and Gould left the club. But I tell you what, he gutted them on the way out. That it's got to be said.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Do you remember who replaced Gould at Penrith?
I do because I looked it up earlier. Roy Simmons.
Research.
Yeah, I did some research. Interesting thing about Royce Simmons, he coached the Panthers through a very, very low time in their history. The next couple of years, they had some handy players and stuff around at the club. But going into 2000, they had probably their worst teams ever. And if not for the coaching of Roy Simmons and the players that he brought through, we do not win the 2003 premiership.
Oh, absolutely. He did a phenomenal job there.
He really did, and a thankless job. That was something that we were lucky to have him at the time, and I don't think it's talked about enough.
No, absolutely not. July 20. 8 under 16-year-old players from the Parramatta Junior League are suspended for a total combined 76 weeks after a vicious brawl between Layla Park and Wentworthville Leagues Club.
Whoa, jeez. I'd love to see that brawl.
The Sydney Morning Herald reports that TV rights to the 1995 World Cup have been snapped up by an American cable network.
All right. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder who they were.
Canterbury coach Chris Anderson attacks the league's judiciary after they find Craig Polamatta guilty of abusing a touch judge and suspending him for 1 week.
Okay.
Really? July 26. News of a Super League competition resurfaces in the media. League General Manager John Quayle concedes that such a privately run competition is definitely feasible.
Yeah. And I still feel as though it wasn't taken seriously, though, by anyone.
No, it was still seen as, oh, yeah, we've seen this before.
Because and people probably don't realise this, Rugby League has seen this so many times before by this stage.
Yeah.
And there's been so much talk about it and so many meetings and nothing ever come of it.
What's this? Is this July 29? Brett Mullins produces a performance touched with greatness to score 4 tries in Canberra's 52-16 hiding of Newcastle. And if I remember correctly, I think 3 of those were length of the field tries. Yeah.
And I remember watching that game and then going to school the next Monday, and that's all anybody talked about for about a week. And everyone wanted to be Brett Mullins. And it was incredible. You watch the highlights now. He absolutely tore Newcastle apart.
He was on another planet. As far as skill was, he was another level to everybody else.
Yeah, he really was. And one of the best seasons any individual player's ever had.
Yeah.
Incredible.
July 31, Balmain forward Danny Stapleton has to be resuscitated in the dressing room after he stops breathing during a game against the Gold Coast.
Jeez.
I'm pretty sure he may have actually played the week later.
Oh, my goodness.
August 2, Brett Mullins signs a 5-year deal with Canberra. That's what you call capitalising on a good moment.
Yeah.
Just back 4 tries. Quick, let's go talk up another deal.
Yeah, exactly.
August the 4th. Western Suburbs confirmed the signing of Tommy Raudonikis as coach for the next 2 years.
And it was a pretty colourful 2 years as well.
It was, yes.
I can't say that he did a terrible job because he really had no talent to work with while he was there.
August 9.
Statistically, one of the worst clubs in the history of the game while Tommy was there. So,
absolutely. August 9, the league announced that one semi-final will be played in Brisbane in 1995. Also, first grade matches will now kick off at 2:30 p.m. instead of 3 p.m.
Oh, that's an interesting change.
Yeah.
Now, what was it that We were talking about this with Tony Collins, I believe. What was it that we had our kickoff times from? Was it knockoff time or something? Do you remember that conversation we had?
Yeah, so people on Saturdays used to work half a day, so they'd finish at 12 or 1
That's it.
o'clock, and it gave them enough time to get home, put on their best clothes for a Saturday, and then get to the game in time for the football to start.
Yeah, and that's why we had those kickoff times for forever. I never knew that.
Yeah.
The other thing that came out of that, because all the semi-finals used to be in Sydney in the big stadiums, and that was just the way it was, and placating the Broncos a little bit in having one game up there in Brisbane, it was an interesting move. Obviously, it wasn't enough for Brisbane, but that was kind of the first step in what we have now, which is home finals.
Yes. So it's interesting. We're learning about the tiny little, minutiae of details here that most people wouldn't realise. But, a lot of these were happening in 94. August 16, Balmain announced radical plans to secure the club's future. Tigers are to be known as the Sydney Tigers, and they are to abandon Leichhardt Oval to play their home matches at Parramatta Stadium in 95. Long-serving CEO Keith Barnes is to stand down at the end of 1994.
Now, I guess we can talk about this now. There were 3 teams that decided to change their names. We had the Canterbury Bulldogs changed to Sydney Bulldogs. We had Eastern Suburbs Roosters changed to Sydney City Roosters, and we had obviously the Balmain Tigers changed to Sydney Tigers. And this is kind of because they see the writing on the wall in terms of what the New South Wales Rugby League and ARL is looking for in a national competition. And they had literally said, we expect some Sydney clubs to die. So now we're seeing the Sydney clubs all manoeuvring. And I remember that season that the Sydney Tigers played at Parramatta Stadium was not well received at all by anyone, really. And they quickly changed back.
It was crazy too because they had a consultant go through, and the consultant found that there were more Balmain fans living closer to Parramatta Stadium than there were to Leichhardt Oval.
Yeah, and the weird thing for me was that, I mean, they just seemed so out of place. It would have made more sense if they'd played at the SFS to me.
Yeah, I think they were just trying to make sure that they didn't force their fans to travel too far, I guess.
Yeah.
That's what it was all about. But
the real problem they had was they were so terrible at the time that none of it really mattered.
No, I mean, so much so that Balmain were looking at relocating out of Sydney, and the 2 areas that were being proposed were the Central Coast and Melbourne.
And we spoke about Melbourne before the game. Like, if they had moved to Melbourne, like if they had announced in 94 they'll move to Melbourne, they'd still be there.
Yeah, they would. They'd have been propped up. They'd still be there. And as for West, they would have been taken over by Canterbury.
Mm-hmm.
Completely swallowed up.
Yeah.
August 17, General Manager John Quayle reveals Canterbury and East have now also applied to change their names to the Sydney Bulldogs and Sydney City in 1995. Following day, Greg Alexander confirms he is signed with the Auckland Warriors for 1995.
Yeah, and that was a move I would suggest he would say he needed a bit of a change too.
Yeah, because he drifted out of his normal high form, and you can understand why, the poor bugger.
Yeah.
Balmain play their final match at Leichhardt Oval after 60 years at the ground, and they go out losers 22-10 to Penrith.
Their final game.
Did you just laugh?
I did. Their final game. What a load of crap. I tell you, the interesting thing is, ground was probably a lot better then than it is now. Like the stands were out and everything was only about 40 years old by that stage.
Well, back in those days too, they didn't have white ants in the Norm Latcham Robinson stand.
Yeah,
You could actually sit in the whole stadium.
no one was signing off things like with things saying like concrete cancer and words like that.
August 22, Newcastle announced that Great Britain coach Malcolm Riley will replace David Waite as their coach for the next 2 years.
Yeah, I tell you what, a timely move for him, hey?
Oh, absolutely. Canberra launched a bid to sign Commonwealth Games sprinter Horace Dove Edwin from Sierra Leone.
I don't remember that at all. But who was he going to move out of the team from Noah Nandruku and bloody Ken Nagus? He wasn't getting in that team. No one in the world except maybe Offie was getting in that team.
Yeah, good luck.
Yeah.
August 28, the Sunday Telegraph reports that Randwick Rugby Union winger Peter Jorgensen has signed with East for 95.
Yeah, Jorgo. He ended up playing for the Penrith Panthers. Unfortunately, during the end of his Panthers career, was very, very slow player. And ended up coaching in the lower grades. I actually had a family member that was coached by him in the lower grades in the Penrith comp.
August 29, Balmain hooker Benny Elias decides to not retire and resign with the club for one more year.
Nice. Good stuff, Benny.
August 30, Ellery Hanley is appointed coach of Great Britain.
That was a good appointment too.
Oh, absolutely. He was... He just got what it was. He got the players to invest in how important it was to wear that jumper.
Yeah, and I dare say he got, and he had the talent there, which is the thing, and it all comes down to talent. But the last time that Great Britain probably had a chance.
Yeah. September 2, a serious skiing accident places the future of Penrith fullback Matt Adamson in jeopardy when he damaged both knees in a bad fall.
What's he doing skiing? What the hell, man? Skiing mid-season. It's funny that he was a fullback at the time, hey?
Yeah, he moved into the second row, didn't he?
Yeah, he ended up moving into the second row.
He's a big man for a fullback.
We'll leave it there. Yeah, you know the other one that was, I'm pretty sure was a fullback at one point was Joe Nullavow.
Yeah, that's right. He was too.
Mm.
September 3, a bizarre accident at his home claims the life of Cronulla lower grade forward Ben Lysort. I believe what happened was he got run over by his own vehicle, and it was because he was looking for something when a few of his mates were there, and the car, they must have bumped the gear stick and put in reverse, something like that, and it rolled down the driveway and he got hit by it.
That's terrible.
Yeah, absolute freak accident.
Mm.
David Fairley becomes the first North Sydney player to win the Rothmans Medal, recording the highest points tally in medal history. Bookmakers are said to have lost $115,000 after suggestions the name of the winner was leaked.
Yeah, and this was huge at the time. I remember this. And the bookies blew up deluxe, as they had every right to. And it's interesting if it happened now. Like I believe that it was the New South Wales fraud squad looked into this. It was one of those rugby league sort of things, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
And this started happening a little bit every so often. And I feel like this might have been the final straw for bookies. And like we've seen them go on and off of what they will and won't place bets on. Yeah. So, yeah.
September 9, Balmain re-signed Tim Brasher until the end of 1998.
Nice. Good move.
September 10, the Rothmans Medal sting hits the front pages of newspapers across New South Wales as fraud squad police investigate rumours of a leak.
Rumours.
September 11, the Sun Herald reports that members of the starting price betting task force are investigating claims that a Sydney first grade team bet against themselves in at least one game during the season.
I wonder who that was, if it ever come out.
Maybe it was Balmain. Tim Simone's uncle.
just tossing it up.
Just chuck that out there.
Run with it, James.
September 13, a South Sydney sponsorship launch turns ugly when allegations of match fixing are raised by the media. Alan Jones admits asking police to investigate monstrous and heinous allegations that several South players had run dead after backing West to win a match on August 14.
Wow, that's interesting.
And same day, the Western Reds officially announced Brad Mackay as their captain in 1995.
He was a good player, Brad Mackay. He was a great signing. Yeah.
He was one bloke who I did enjoy watching play too as a youngster.
Yeah.
He should never. He looked like he should never have been playing in the forwards, and yet the ticker on him was huge.
Yeah, and he was another one of those players that might be forgotten a little bit, but when you would pick like a New South Wales side in particular, you had to have him.
Oh, definitely. Another one, which was, I think the best term for him is unfashionable, was David Barnhill.
Yeah, definitely.
He was good.
Didn't look like much of an athlete, but damn, he played well. And was part of that, North Sydney around this time, they had a pack that should have been considered one of the great packs of all time.
Yeah.
And probably isn't because they didn't end up winning a premiership. But like him, Fairley, Florimo, who was the hooker's name?
Mark Soden.
Yeah, Soden, that's it, yeah.
Billy Moore
in the side, yeah. So many great players.
Oh, yeah, it was a damn good side. September 15, former international Paul Vaughton admits he was once offered money during the late 80s to ensure Manly lost a game.
Well, I don't remember that, but isn't it? It's interesting how the door gets opened by the Rothmans medal allegations, and then the media just starts pulling out all these stories.
Yes, and here's another one here, September 16. The betting scandal continues with allegations that a former international player placed bets of $20,000 on West to beat South in the allegedly fixed game on August 14. Wow. South players John Elias and Darryl Trindle are interviewed on television current affairs shows over rumours leaking into alleged match fixing. Ben Elias, meanwhile, admits being offered money to run dead in a game in 94.
Run dead. It's the latest term, apparently, in 94.
Actually, I'm going to look at this bloke's name here because I think he might be related to a current player.
Okay.
And if he's not, then I've just thrown a bad curly.
Just thinking of that North Sydney team. It's incredible that North Sydney side, and there were some great players in that side. Ivan Cleary played for them. Sean Hoppy, Gary Larson we talked about, Billy Moore, Tony Ray, who would go on to coach the London Broncos, Matt Sears, who was a youngster, absolutely brilliant at fullback, Mark Soden, Josh Stewart, I forgot that he played for them.
Jason Taylor. He was a bit of a hothead.
Yeah, he was, yeah. Jason Taylor was their halfback. Adrian Toole, I forgot about him. Matt Toshak, I forgot about him. Daniel Williams, Craig Wilson. It's a great team. It's incredible they didn't win a grand final.
Yeah. It's amazing that they weren't. September 19, North's fullback Matthew Sears is named Norwich Rising Star of 1994.
Yeah, he had a great season. He exploded onto the scene, hey?
Yeah. A bookmaking agency confirms former international Dale Shearer placed a $10,000 bet on the match at the centre of the match-fixing investigations.
Oh, wow.
Rowdy, what are you doing?
Yeah.
September 20, police call off their investigations into an alleged betting scheme on the Rothmans medal, claiming there is no evidence of any illegalities.
I guess that's a good thing.
September 21, John Elias and former St George captain Michael Beattie are arrested on weapons charges.
I remember that.
You do? Because I don't.
Yeah, I remember that.
September 25, Canberra send Mal Meninga out on a winning note with a commanding 36-12 grand final victory over Canterbury.
Now, I think it's a good time to talk about the Canberra Raiders and just their overall general club season. Canberra felt like the team to beat throughout this entire year, and it always looked like it was going to be them and Canterbury. North Sydney had a great season, but they were North Sydney. At this point, Manly were building towards something, and you could see that. Brisbane had fallen off from the previous year a little bit, but there was obviously a lot going on there. But yeah, to me, it always felt like it was Canberra's season. Their for and against was ridiculous. Like, they were plus 379 for the for and against. The next best was actually the Manly Seagulls, and they were plus 294. And in that, previously, the Canterbury Bulldogs had beaten the Canberra Raiders in a major semi-final. They'd beaten them 19-18. That might have actually gone to extra time, that game, from memory, because I was actually listening to that on the radio, funnily enough. I don't think it was actually shown on TV. But yeah, in the grand final, it was very one-sided. I remember Martin Bella dropping, I think he might have dropped the kickoff even. Was it the kickoff?
Yeah, it was.
And it just was one of those games where it always looked like it was going to be the Canberra Raiders' day, and they ran away with a massive victory.
They did.
Didn't Terry Lamb get knocked senseless in that game as well?
Oh, I can't remember that. He may well have.
I feel like it might have been Terry Lamb got just knocked absolutely senseless. It just, everything went against the poor old Canterbury Bulldogs. And then Mal Meninga scored that intercept, runaway try, pushed off Jared McCracken, a young Jared McCracken playing in the centres at that point. Scored under the post, gave a fist pump. It was a good time to like the Canberra Raiders back in 1994.
Absolutely. September 27, Laurie Daly signs a 3-year, $500,000 endorsement deal with Nike.
Whoa, that's gigantic. Holy crap.
Yeah. And same day, Mal Meninga rejects a $1 million offer from the London Broncos and announces he'll remain with the Canberra Raiders in a marketing, promotional and coaching capacity.
Okay. Wow. I wonder if at that point Mal Meninga knows what's coming around the corner. I mean, he didn't end up jumping onto it, but maybe he knew that there was big money about to be thrown at everyone.
Quite possibly, yeah.
Yeah.
3 days after the grand final, the 28-man Kangaroo squad flies out of Sydney bound for its 18-match tour of Great Britain and France.
3 days, that's very quick.
Yeah, no fucking around here.
Yeah. Now, they played on this Kangaroo tour, and this was the last real Kangaroo tour we had. They played 18 games from the 2nd of October to the 4th of December.
It was the shortest Kangaroo tour at that time.
Whoa, that's crazy, hey?
Every other Kangaroo tour had been at least 20 games and went for, I think close to 3 months.
That's incredible.
They were wrapping them up usually in the first week of December or, very late November, but this one was very, very short.
And some of the teams they played Cumbria was the first game. They beat them 52 points to 8.
I remember that they hammered Sheffield.
Yeah, where's the Sheffield?
80-0 or 86-0 or something like that.
80-2 they beat Sheffield in front of 7,400 fans. What are some of the other ones? They beat...
Was Gary Jack playing for Sheffield then?
Ooh, let's have a look.
He was either playing or coaching them. I think he's involved with them.
Gary Hetherington was listed as the coach. I can't see Gary Jack in their lineup though. No, it doesn't look like he's.
Oh no, he was there in '92.
Okay.
I think I'm getting mixed up with when Australia played Great Britain for the World Cup final in '92. I think they had a warm-up match against Sheffield, and that's when he played against them.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, they played some of the other teams they played on this tour. Wales, 46 points to 4. They beat them. Great Britain, Warrington. Interesting, they played some club games in between the first and second test. They even played the Great Britain under-21s team. Let's have a look at who's in that team, hey? Under-21s team. Steve Prescott was in that team. Chris Smith, Carl Hammond, Francis Cummings, Ryan Sheridan. Who else? John Clark. I'm just going through the players that I know of. Nathan McAvoy, he was in it. Nathan Sykes, he was in it. So interesting.
Yeah. October 6th. And now we're starting to see parts of the ARL, the New South Wales Rugby League, starting to get nervous about this Super League saga. Because on October 6th, it's revealed that all 28 Kangaroos have been asked to sign an agreement ensuring their availability for international football for the next 2 years.
Now, this was kind of brilliant by the ARL, and because it meant that they had all of the elite players in Australia under contract.
Yep.
And you and me have talked about this before. This almost certainly put Super League back at least 1 year, because all of these players had signed, and the term loyalty agreement is a massive term that it really starts with these contracts that these players sign. And there are a lot of court cases that come up, and these contracts are the reason that these court cases come up. And early on in a lot of these court cases, the ARL wins a lot of them based on these contracts that these Kangaroos players sign right now.
Yeah. Definitely tactical, very intelligent move.
Yeah, and doing it while they had these elite players in a squad, in a team environment. Look, if we're just signing these contracts, it's just say that you will be available to play for Australia. The players probably didn't realise what they were signing at the time. And, yeah, brilliant move.
Yeah. October 9, Kangaroo management cite Wigan prop Barry McDermott over an alleged elbow on Australian forward Paul Sirenen. Did you see that? Do you remember
it? You know, we watched that elbow. I don't remember it, but we watched it about a month ago. I can't remember why we were looking up. We might have been looking up dirty plays in rugby league. Yes. It was a shocker. It was a real shocker. It was a proper old school.
Yeah. Cocked his elbow and hit him from the side of the head.
Yeah.
He was brutal. And takes a lot to get Paul Sirenen clueless. He hit him hard.
Yeah, it was terrible.
Barry McDermott received a 2-match suspension for that and a £1,000 fine.
That's a fair suspension going into a test series.
Yeah. October 17, the league placed a 1-year exemption on rugby union players for the purposes of salary cap assessments.
Oh, that's interesting. I don't remember that. I'm trying to think of any. I guess the South Queensland Crushers took that up, and it was a terrible mistake.
Oh yes, that was a bad mistake. Also, October 17, British all-time great player Gus Risman dies at the age of 83.
Oh wow!
October 18, a 6-week police investigation clears South of any involvement in match fixing. New South Wales Rugby League General Manager John Quayle admits he has no doubt a Super League document has been prepared. Broncos CEO John Rebo accuses the league of commercial suicide after rejecting the ANZ Stadium as a finals venue for 1995.
That's interesting. Of course, at the time, the team that was most likely to be using that would have been the Broncos.
Yes.
So,
October 20, the Crushers reportedly offer rugby union star Jason Little $300,000 a season to switch codes.
And that he doesn't do that from memory.
He stays where he is.
Yeah.
October 20, ARL Chairman Ken Arthurson warns the Brisbane Broncos face expulsion from the Winfield Cup over their involvement in Super League discussions.
Yeah, and now we're definitely into it now.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that I would say anything that you read, it's an interesting time in Australia because I feel as though this was a massive turning point in what we saw from the media, because all of a sudden media organisations that you felt they were very proud of being unbiased, and that all immediately goes out the window. And I feel as though it was all about Super League, and you had battle lines drawn between media organisations and misinformation and rumours and like literal PR campaigns against the opposition being run on front pages of newspapers. It was disgusting, and we never really recovered from it, I don't think.
No. The media didn't get over it either.
No.
They stayed in that mode.
Yep.
October 27, Broncos chairman Paul Morgan attacks the league and predicts that a Premier League will be established in the near to medium future.
Yeah, and it's interesting he called it a Premier League. I'm almost certain that they would have been saying to them, we'll do what we did in the Premier League over in England.
The next day, Ken Arthurson and English boss Maurice Lindsay team up to ensure that a rebel Super League will not have access to elite players at test level.
Yeah, that didn't last long.
The Crushers continued their search for a rugby union player. This time they're chasing South African star Peter Mueller, but he said no.
Now, I don't remember him, obviously. I know that the Canterbury Bulldogs were going after a rugby union star, and he won the World Cup in 1995 for South Africa.
Yep.
And they thought they'd had him on board. Now, I don't know if it was for the 1995 season. I feel like it might have been actually for 1996 or 7. And they thought they had him on board, and then basically got a phone call and was like, I can't leave. So, yeah.
Fast forward a bit to November 8. Players Union Chairman Peter Moscott says players would ask for pay rises of at least 100% if a Super League was introduced.
That's interesting that it was up to the Players Association to say that, because the 100% pay rise is unders.
Yeah, it wasn't even close.
Like rugby league players are literally all of a sudden, I dare say that in the next 18 months there are more millionaire rugby league players than there are right now in the NRL. Many.
Yes. November 9, Ken Arthurson arrives back in Australia from England to hold secret urgent talks over the proposed Super League with executives of News Limited. Winfield Cup clubs receive a document from the RL seeking a 5-year commitment to the head body. So that's more of those loyalty agreements, but this time they were for the clubs.
Yeah, and I think then it starts to cause problems now. Now it's like the battle lines are drawn, and they're not sneaking in a contract like that anymore. Because
on November 10, 18 of the 20 Winfield Club teams have signed letters to support the ARL. 2 didn't.
Brisbane.
And I believe the other one might have been Canberra.
I was going to say Canberra. Yeah, I think you're right.
I didn't remember this one. November 11, news reveals that an Australian player has tested positive to a banned drug after the first test at Wembley.
Oh, I don't remember that.
Yeah, I don't remember that either. The Broncos pledged their support for a 5-year contract with the ARL, conditional on an immediate move towards global promotion of the game.
And isn't it funny that that's literally what Rugby League was thinking was global at that stage?
Yeah, that's exactly right. We already had talks about taking the game to Hong Kong. More attempts to try and get the game into the USA. So, everything was underway in that regard anyway.
Mm-hmm.
November 12. Oh, my goodness. I remember this one.
Yep.
Ken Arthurson says, inner Sydney clubs will not be forced into amalgamations.
Which is really weird because, yeah. So, it's a backflip on what they had been really open about, that we're going to expand the comp and Sydney clubs are going to die, and that's it. And then they start saying this, and of course this enraged every non-Sydney club, basically, especially the Broncos.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But this was a way for the ARL to get Sydney clubs on board and sign their agreements as well.
That's the whole purpose behind it. November 13, Arthurson concedes a Super League of 10 or 12 teams is looking inevitable for the 1996 season.
Yeah.
November 14, a meeting between reps of the 20 clubs and proposed Super League officials discussed News Limited's plans for a 12-team elite comp as early as 96. Arthurson concedes for the first time that Sydney clubs are well advanced in talks concerning amalgamation. The 20 Woodford Cup clubs are guaranteed a 5-year commitment from the league.
It's interesting that it didn't take too long for amalgamation to be back on the agenda.
He's all back on again.
Yeah. It's not a very long guarantee, was it?
It lasted about 3 days.
Yeah.
4 days. November 15. Talk of a Super League in Australia leads to plans for a similar comp in England with a World League series as a spin-off. Chief executives of clubs expressed disappointment at News Limited plans to run a 20-team comp as a second tier to an elite Super League in 96.
Yeah, and those things ended up happening. I guess the expanded World Club Challenges, that World League competition that they were talking about. And something to come out of that, though, is remember not too long before Maurice Lindsay had an agreement with Ken Arthurson that the elite players, well, that's out the window. It's gone.
That's all gone.
That's all gone.
Yeah. November 17, Peter Moore, the Bulldogs chief executive, says the Super League should not be rushed. He proposed that they should be aiming at 2000, not 1996.
And the thing that's going on in the background of all of this is that the ARL had signed an agreement to have Optus Vision pay TV and to show the games on Optus Vision pay TV. And meanwhile, all of these people are running around saying, well, when we do a Super League, it should be done this way and that way. But the Super League was going to mean that Foxtel got the rights to this league, but the league already had an agreement with Optus Vision. And so, that's all Super League was about, was pay TV. It was about nothing else at all except pay TV. And so while people are publicly coming out and saying we shouldn't rush this, we should take our time, it's a very weird situation.
That's right. November 21 reveals the first proposed merger talks between two clubs. Do you want to have a guess at who they were?
November 21, 94. I'm going to say Eastern Suburbs.
No.
Okay, completely wrong. Were the West Magpies involved?
Yes, they were.
Okay, because they had to be. They were dying. And what about them and What about them in South?
No, it was West and Cronulla.
Wow, that's interesting.
The crazy thing about this is in 1982-83,
Mm-hmm.
both those clubs were so close to insolvency.
Mm-hmm.
It was remarkable that they managed to survive, especially West. And here we are, got two of the possibly at the time financially weaker teams wanting to merge together.
Yeah.
November 23, Jonathan Davies agrees to join the Cowboys.
Yeah, I honestly can't remember how he played for the Cowboys, hey?
Yeah, I don't remember it either. I don't think it was that fantastic, to be honest.
Yeah, I just can't remember. I don't think he played that many games for them.
November 27, Cronulla announced a $7 million windfall through the sale of property near Caltex Field, a record league club profit, and a $300,000 football club surplus.
Nice. They're safe forever then. Good.
Yeah. The Sun Herald reveals Steve Roach has received a huge offer from Canterbury to come out of retirement.
Whoa. That's interesting. I wonder how old he would have been at that point.
That's a good question.
He's got to have been, pretty old, surely.
32.
Wow. I thought he would have been way older than that.
Yeah. November 28, News Limited announced they will present their first written Super League proposal to the ARL in February.
That's interesting.
December 1, the ARL announced plans to stage the 98 World Cup at the new 80,000-seat Olympic Stadium at Homebush. And they also announced a record profit of $12.49 million for the year.
That's pretty impressive. All that money's about to be spent really quickly. Interesting thing there is that they were looking at having a World Cup just 3 years later after 95.
Yeah. December. Well, I think that might have been to do with 90 years of rugby league in Australia, probably.
Yeah, that makes sense, actually.
December 4, a confidential poll conducted on behalf of Cronulla reveals an overwhelming desire among St George supporters to merge with the Sharks rather than any other club.
I can understand why that poll was kept confidential.
Yes, that wouldn't have been too well received, I'd imagine, by many of the fans.
Yeah, who the hell would think that that's a good idea at either of those clubs?
Yeah, exactly. December 7, news breaks of West's decision to appoint an administrator after the football club incurs debts of $850,000.
Wow, that's incredible.
December 8, a car driven by former Penrith star Brad Izzard is involved in a fatal accident in Sydney's West. Izzard suffers minor injuries.
Yeah, I remember that, actually. I'm pretty sure Brad Izzard at the time was a cop as well.
Oh.
I'm almost certain he was a cop.
Penrith, this is December 11. Penrith, Parramatta and Canterbury clubs are said to be in the running for Sydney's second NBL licence.
I don't remember that. Could have done worse than any of them. They ended up going with the Razorbacks. I feel like they might have been linked a little bit with Canterbury, but I'm not 100% certain.
Yeah, I can't remember that at all, to be honest. December 15, Raylene Burnt of Brisbane and Marilyn McKenna of Wide Bay are appointed touch judges for the World Sevens tournament.
Oh, that's very cool. Yeah, some more women's rugby league history.
December 22, the Western Reds sign a lucrative sponsorship with fast food outlet Rad Rooster, boosting the club's annual corporate sponsorship to $5 million.
That's incredible. That's a lot. Wow.
And December 24, The Auckland Warriors name 11 internationals in their first trial outfit to play New Zealand provincial side Canterbury in January.
Far out. Yeah, they were a star-studded team at that point. Yeah. And rugby league is, in the next 12 months from that moment on, is about to change radically, which is a big season coming up in 95, mostly off the field. I feel as though the 95 season on the field was a bit meh.
No one knows what went on because the off-field stuff was just chaos. And, I mean, we might just have to do that episode in the next few days, I guess, as well.
Yeah, and, like, you could literally do that episode and say, this team won the, you know, this team won the State of Origin, this team won the Premiership, and now we'll talk about what the real story was.
That's pretty much how it'll work. So we might quickly wrap this one up because it's been a rather lengthy episode, this one.
Yeah, it has been. I loved the 94 season as a kid. It was so exciting, so many great players, so many good young players that would go on to be staples of the game for a long, long time to come. But for me, the season, when I think of 95, I think of Brett Mullins tearing up Newcastle. What do you think about?
Yeah, it's Brett Mullins. There's no one else. I thought what I'd do too is just have a quick look at who won the awards in 94.
Oh, that's a good idea, yeah. I guess the three memories that stick out for me is Brett Mullins against Newcastle, the grand final, obviously. Canberra were fantastic. And then Bradley Clyde getting knocked out by Shaun Edwards in the Test series in the Ashes. And he was never the same after that, unfortunately, Bradley Clyde.
That's true. Actually, one other thing was the emergence of the Cronulla Sharks third grade team.
Mm-hmm.
This is who they had in their President's Cup side, which was third grade back then, on grand final day. David Peachey, Matt Daylight, Matt Rogers, Ben Samet, Adam Dykes, Gavin Clinch, Dean Treaster, Adam Ritson, there's a player, Sean Ryan, Nick Graham, Wade Forrester. They all became first grade players within the next 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, and bloody good players too.
Yeah. So Cronulla won the President's Cup Grand Final 30-6 over East. They also won the Reserve Grade Grand Final over Newcastle 14-4.
Wow, the Newcastle Reserve Grade team. That'd be interesting to go through and see how many of those players.
Yeah, okay. Well, they had Robbie Ross, Shane Vincent, Brett Grogan, Jason Martin, Tim Madison, Max Chapman, Paul Marquette, Billy Peden, Wayne Richards, Tony Butterfield, Damien Driscoll. They were all either past first graders or future ones.
Yeah.
And for the Sharks, they had Chris Queen, Kurt Wrigley, Paul Donaghy, Paul Bell, Glenn Coleman, Stuart Topper, Michael Porter, Aaron Raper, Craig Greenhill, Nathan Long, Alan Wilson, Robbie Kearns, Andrew Pearce.
There's a lot of first graders in both those teams. That's incredible.
Yeah, unbelievable. The Rothmans Medal was won by David Fairley. Second was Steve Menzies. Third was Paul Green.
Paul Green. People will forget how good of a player he was. Actually, Paul Green. Steve Menzies. Now I can't remember the season he had in '94, but for him to get second in that Rothmans Medal, I mean, he must have had a great season.
Yeah. Those first few years that he had, my God. He was basically a centre that could defend, and so he was playing at either in second row or at lock most of the time.
Mm.
But
see, I kind of remember him more going forward from that season onwards, hey?
Yeah. But in 94, he scored 16 tries in 23 games.
That's crazy.
Was his that was his fourth best season as a try scorer.
Yeah, that's incredible. As a second rower, far out.
Dally M medal winner was Cliff Lyons.
Mm-hmm.
Second was Jim Sedaris. Third was Alan Langer. Mm-hmm. The Dally M team of the year was Brett Mullins, Darryl Halligan, Andrew Eddinghausen, Cliff Lyons, Alan Langer, Ian Roberts, Jim Sedaris, Steve Menzies, Brad Fittler, Captain Mal Meninga, Coach Peter Louis. Players player went to Bradley Clyde. The rookie was Steve Menzies. The rep player was Ben Elias. And the junior Dalian went to Michael Withers.
Oh, Mick Withers, far out.
Yeah.
It's interesting that Brett Mullins didn't win the Dally M, hey?
No, he didn't.
Like he should have. How did he not win it?
That's right. So, yeah, that's all the major award winners for the year. Hope you all enjoyed that.
Yeah, of course, importantly, Australia beat Great Britain 2-1 in the Test series. The last great Ashes series, too.
That's right. And that one loss was the only loss on the entire tour.
Yeah, incredible.
And it was the first Test?
Yes, it was, in London. And that is also the series that I believe both of us credit for destroying our future sleeping patterns for the next, like, well, what does it be? I don't even want to know how many years it's been. 2 or 3
ever
years.
since. Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah.
So we plan on doing a lot more of these sort of things, like year in review type things. So hope you like it. We'll wrap this turkey up.
Yeah. Thanks for listening. You can follow Andrew on Twitter. You just go to Andrew RLP. You can follow me, League Freak. Just look up League Freak, no space. Go to the Patreon, patreon.com/RL Project. Donate to the Rugby League Project. That'd be fantastic. Of course, go to Rugby League Project. That's rugbyleagueproject.org. Go to leaguefreak.com. And
go to fergonthefreak.com.
Of course, fergonthefreak.com. Follow us on Twitter, Fergo Freak Pod. And
on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on YouTube, on every podcasting thing there possibly is. You can't not find us.
Yeah, we're everywhere. In fact, if you're listening in bed, we're standing outside your bedroom door right now. So check it out.
Exactly. So thanks for tuning in, everyone. And we'll catch you next time.